History you won't know so much about. The Celle has been asked by the press to explain a better history what is about. It is so misconstrued when you describe an item. You find that the piano that is described like the laying in state of a great emperor or a great wartime leader, perhaps as late January 1965 of the late Sir Winston Churchill. Or you make a mistake in describing the piano by its wrong wood, as if to say that human variations would play any differently, or that, as the film director in one unmentionable film once described as King Richard III, 1452 to 1485, the car driven by Reichsmarshal Heinrich Himmler led one to believe that maybe it was not the year that the car was born so much as the 1452 cc or the 1485 horsepower of the Schutzstaffel in comparison to, say, the Waffen SS, that would have placed the British monarchy in some substance for the House of Hanover some 200 years after the Battle of Bosworth field in Leicestershire in 1485, which saw the death of King Richard III and the succession of His Royal Highness King Henry VII, father of that unmentionable, dastardly, cruel king, King Henry VIII, who ruled from 1509 to 47. In some respects, Guernica was an act of courage and an act of kindness to some sections of the community compared to the way some film directors treat the cinema, let's say. I make no criticism about any of your items. They make one want to cry, some of them. That history you won't know so much about. The Celle has been asked by the press to explain a better history what is about. Celle piano notes of the Celle. Therein that was as fine piano was crafted in the 19th century, so its mellow tone and condition as reflected by age is at age. Is it a fine history by your where any appraisal less means that you are praising it, less means you are praising it, don't praise it. That falling into some trap is failing, maybe it's just falling into some trap in that assumption that if antique is in keeping with posterity, therefore it's a fine musical instrument, I make no comment. Everything is intact, so to speak, and in working order, either its mechanism, dampers, hammers, 7 octaves, it is not tuned to full concert pitch, something the buyer can do a week, or after it has settled, or been in settlement. Where is his new house? settled, that may, settled, Alexi. Settled that may remind one of the chicken farmer Richard MacDonald, 1909 to 98, at Ray Kroc, K-R-O-C, not Croc, crocodile. Make him clear, Himmler, make Himmler. They branded as being a chicken farmer. Yet fail to tell you, and did you ever hear of a chicken hitching a ride on a Colonel Sanders truck? Of course not. Even a chicken is too smart for that. And a chicken's brain, his brain isn't as big as Dan Quayle, his vocabulary. But the brash predominance of many sellers, they give you the history for the pianoforte, and they fail to leave out the size of the truth of it. The size of the piano, they think they know, but the truth of the piano is never, as in your coffin, given by size. Your truth is given in your spirit while you live. We can leave the wood and how solid is your heart out of it, for it is merely conjecture of a material nature. So for Madame Material, her enlistment into the state's military, Colonel Sanders' son, of course not, the chicken being too smart for that, has a chicken's brain, still able as much to think beyond Dan Quayle's vocabulary. But the Bush-Quayle administration and now the Clinton administration have hitched a ride for America on a truck that leads to self-destruction. You can talk about how much you ban Germany, and you don't talk about Harold Wilson, the 1963 who gave you the yellow line, who have hitched the ride for America on this truck that lead to destruction through the centuries. International arms sales, chickens chucking, clacking. Chickens chucking and clacking. While the U.S. decries the proliferation of the weapons throughout the world, guess who is the world's largest purveyor of ballistic missiles, fighter planes, cluster bombs, howitzers, tanks and other tools of war? Yes. A new book, Willem Hartung, reveals that the American military contractors are by far the largest sellers of weaponry. $36 billion last year alone. And more and more. So, where does this get us? The tools of war. And more, like chickens coming home to roost, this firepower comes back to haunt us. At last, 3 times American men and women fought on foreign soil. In Somalia, Iraq, Panama, they fought forces that had been armed by U.S. arms dealers and the Pentagon. And they tell you, oh, we don't give the histories of the World War II. It is a lie, viewer, any more than you have the dictatorship. It is a democracy, they tell you. And then they tell you what is their policy. That is not a democracy, that is a dictatorship. Oh, of course, you vote for it in May. So, like the concert pianist, the concert party was like this leader of this band. Her legs was 11 went on to say, like, but I changed it. It is great fun to play with its warm, wet sound, and it's, of course, we know it is, a lovely piece of antique furniture in its own right. You would want it, viewer, to be in its own right, wouldn't you? So you aspire to that. You admit to that. With sliding candle stand as if, and I make some of this up, Lyre-shaped wood pedals, intricately carved baluster, gave by them where the makers was that they were British less made than chicken farmers than say Herman Goering. The makers and how they were favoured by society, and Liszt and the so-called Eddie Elgar. Eddie Elgar, I mean, you think that is knowing music. Eddie Elgar was never called Eddie Elgar. He was called something else. But only if you studied the Enigma variations of Elgar would you know what Elgar's nickname. And crafted for, they continue, and crafted for intimate concert platforms or spacious lounges. You would want them, would you, not to be intimate, but not to be spoken about these concert platforms that made such lies. They made it as much for the chickens of Britain as for the United States of patriotism, equated true Britishness with Liszt, who was so meddling by marriage in the wars of Europe. Charles Dickens may have indeed looked more like a concert pianist worthy of your items. They were selling like the legs three of which claimed were worthy historical documents by as much as the legs three of this serial piano player sent out to the customer on 1880. They were too consumed by the Bianco Squire dynasty, so to the accreditations of from the piano makers about Mr. Byzantin and his squire, his wooden leg, and followed a Schutzstaffel, the SS, a German SS, was commanded from originally small contingent, NSDAP, 1923, from volunteers to the mass organisation, as you know, of the chicken farmer Himmler. That made much the Britishness of Madame X into much more worthiness of the prostitute and married to Mr. like Bianco Squire. Who missed this pianoforte present deadline? Or was committed to the bidding that produced accreditations from the maker. Now, they're going to assume that the makers were involved in as many pianos as birth. That makes the history of those who are told the policy that denotes that to be accepting of those therein the truth that made Himmler a positive English gentleman may be according to that standard, that the fifth column numbering confederated in some honor for promotion that sergeant that used, she called her husband. The fact to be Friedenstrasse, that the seller, unspecified, keep the seller's name out of it, dear, presumed the makers found it not far from Piccadilly was the place where Mozart stayed, that it presented the birth of world wars by negotiated settlements. Yes, this those include the war with Maria Theresia, 3 wars from 1740, 42, 44, 1756 to 63, the 7 Years' War, the Carnatic War, Pomerian War, depending on who's supporting such murder, the encouragement of the dominions of the Americas at the expense of the French monarchy supporting the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. Thereafter, such pride in the company, thereby which the fellows will remain as always named Les O. Maybe they are Les Dawson. Made 3 bids for the Russian question. What Russian question? What to do with the children of Queen Victoria? The Prussian question. As much they found through Princess Alice was working with Florence Nightingale, or founding the causes of World War I, more grievances of World War II, and the reasons to sue for peace or pieces of chicken farmers. And they had the audacity to declare as an illegal organisation in 45 the Schutzstaffel. Chicken farmer. Who is the chicken farmer? of all the ballistic missiles of the United States of America. We will learn that made those history whose granted full right by company policy brands much more the apparent suave serenity of that concert pianist. Of it you sit in your interpretive halls of concertos, or listen to those as by the composer as if themselves, or merely played as a pack of lies to their true grief and grievances, which once would honour Beethoven, but now may honour more truly. Who's president? Of Quayle, or of Kennedy, or of Obama? That may, in whose history grant full right of company policy, brands much more the apparent serenity of this fella to be less of a pack of lies and grievance, injustice to the common prostitute, more assuaged to the affairs of love than to the affairs of such common contract. So we're welcoming you, viewer, to her auction. Come up and see me sometime. The history you want to know.